It's not the 100-day anniversary present Donald Trump was counting on.
Economic growth has sharply declined in the first 3 months of the year.
Today, figures reveal the US economy has contracted as fear of Trump's tariffs made businesses stockpile goods ahead of rising prices.
That's the worst quarter the country has seen since 2022.
Trump today blamed Joe Biden for the economic reversal, no doubt keen to remain in celebratory mode, as he was last night.
And we're here tonight in the heartland of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, and that's according to many, many people.
Yet many, many more see Trump's first 100 days as the most chaotic in US history, with tens of thousands of federal workers fired, global alliances upended, and an economy that was on the rise now in decline. Of course, for Trump, the mayhem is part of the plan, and he's reveling in it.
Watch this. Watch this.
No more so than on immigration. You'd think Trump might avoid images of deportees that have already forced the US courts to weigh in, but instead he lashed out at them.
Judges are trying to take away the power given to the president to keep our country safe, and it's not a good thing.
But it is the right of judges to check the power of the president, unless, as many suspect, the president believes he's above the law. Ahead of arriving in Michigan, the home of America's car makers, Trump reversed some of his punitive auto tariffs. Those supporters here didn't seem worried about the pain they might cause to the economy.
I'm not worried about the short term. If you're looking at the short term game, then you're small-minded, small thinking, and you're not going to ever get anything solved.
Let him cook.
What does that mean, though?
That means to just let him do his thing and just watch what happens.
But even if that causes chaos for people that work and live in places like Macomb, big manufacturing hubs.
He's a master chess player, so let him play chess and see what he does.
Who's your duck?
Sugar.
And what's Sugar doing here?
She's here to support Trump, run her beak for Donald Trump, make a lot of noise, and keep the crowd all hyped up.
Impeach Trump! Impeach Trump!
But the only crowd that was hyped up was the one against Donald Trump.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Donald Trump has got to go!
The hundreds of protesters who turned out to do what many in Washington, D.C. have failed to achieve, the big fight back. And how would you sum up the first 100 days?
Heartbreaking.
Tyranny.
Chaos.
If you had to sum it up in one word, what would you say?
I think two.
Trump sees Michigan as the epitome of his base, the heart of blue-collar, working-class America. Yet many of them have already begun to feel the pain of his tariffs, like Michael Howard, who's a Democrat, yes, but also a small business owner whose prices have already surged.
This piece, I was building a bookshelf in November.
Right.
And I bought this full sheet of plywood for $60. And then I'm building this similar bookcase now, and this piece cost me $90.
$30 more.
Yep.
Wow. And why is that? Tariffs on lumber haven't happened yet.
Tariffs on lumber haven't happened, but it's the danger when you're the president of the United States and you talk about putting on tariffs.
So that price has gone up solely based on the fear there could be tariffs on this lumber.
When you don't know whether the price is going to be the normal price or whether it's going to be a 25% tariff tomorrow, 30% tariff tomorrow, you have to brace for that impact, and it affects me, it affects importers, it affects our clients, and it affects our ability to put food on the table for our family.
We met Michael again at the protest,
Lock him up!
where the anti-Trump brigade was raging about everything from Elon Musk to Ukraine to government cuts.
Show me what democracy looks like!
You sound very angry.
I'm extremely angry. This is the tyranny that so many on the right have warned about for decades, and it's right in front of them, and they're not seeing it.
Donald Trump has got to go!
If immigrants have done bad things, then let them go to trial.
Donald Trump says he's just clearing the people out who shouldn't be here. They're illegal, they're criminals.
That is not what we fought for. That is not what our country's about.
But Donald Trump has made clear he wants to rewrite the very definition of America to upend the system, even if that means breaking the Constitution, to potentially give him another term in power.
Well, that mammoth cabinet meeting, Matt, you talked about has only recently wrapped up in the last 20 minutes or so. And during that meeting, Donald Trump continued to insist that it was Joe Biden's policies, not his, that have caused the economy to shrink in the first quarter. That's Biden. That's not Trump, he's been telling his cabinet members. And Elon Musk, I should point out, has heartily agreed. Donald Trump is even trying to imply that if the economy shrinks in the second quarter, that could also potentially be attributable to Joe Biden. I do not see how he could possibly clear that one if that does happen. And yet the evidence is clear that it is businesses buying up inventory, anticipating higher prices because of his tariffs that have caused the economy to shrink in the first quarter. And yes, that could change if investment does come back to places like here in Michigan and if manufacturing does pick up again. But in the interim, a shrinking economy is certainly not what his voters voted for.
Siobhan in Michigan, thank you very much indeed. Well, Mr. Trump has dismissed the slew of opinion polls suggesting that his popularity has plummeted as rigged. Let's get more now from Kieran in Leeds. Kieran.
Well, Donald Trump is known to pay very close attention to his numbers. So, Mr. President, you may want to look away now. We've been taking a look at the polling, and he has a 44% approval rating after 100 days, so more disapprove than approve. That's compared to other recent presidents. Here they come, all approval ratings above 50% at this stage. In fact, the only worse approval rating going back to the end of World War II was Donald Trump himself during his first term. Now, his best issue is immigration. 48% approve on average across a range of polls, but 50% disapprove. But this is all voters, whereas much of Trump's raw political power, of course, comes from his strength with the MAGA base. And ask Republicans, only 16% think he's gone too far on immigration, whereas 30% of Republicans think he's not gone far enough. And yet, when you ask a specific question like whether President Trump needs to abide by the Supreme Court, who have recently ruled on contested immigration matters, 82% say President Trump needs to abide by the Supreme Court. That's Republicans. So some really interesting nuance there. On the economy, arguably the election clincher, now dominated by the tariff debate. An average of polls again shows President Trump in negative territory. 42% approve, 55% disapprove on the economy among all voters. And that's before today's news that the US economy has shrunk. But when Trump voters specifically are asked their views on tariffs, 80% believe they may cause short-term pain but lead to long-term economic growth. That's Trump voters. So even as his actions, some of them are unpopular with the public at large, Trump 2.0 is sticking to his convictions, largely cheered on for the most part by his hugely loyal base. Matt.
Kieran Jenkins in Leeds. Well, I'm joined now by Jen Pellegrino, Chief Spokesperson for the America First Policy Institute, and Peter Loge, who was a senior advisor in the Obama administration and is now a professor at George Washington University here in DC. Thank you very much for braving the heat.
Thank you for having us.
Jen, let me start with the numbers. So when the markets are good, right, they're Trump markets, and when they're bad, they're Biden markets. I mean, this is nonsense, isn't it?
Well, President Trump was asked about this today. He said, listen, these numbers that you're looking at, we've only been in office 3 months now, first 100 days. The American people, I think if you look at President Trump's base that came out last night in Michigan to support that first 100 days, they're pleased with the direction things are going. That's not to say
but why not be honest? I mean, on the 29th of January, the markets got in, said these are my markets.
He's not taking credit. He said it today. He's not taking credit for the markets. I don't speak for the president, but I'll tell you those were his words this afternoon when asked about that. And again, if you look at the base and where the things are headed in the direction that inflation is obviously cooling right now, people are feeling confident that this president is delivering what they asked of him.
But the markets, are pretty brutal, and they've reined him in. American confidence in the president's ability to handle the economy is right down. Why not just be honest?
Why not be honest with some of the reporting that we're seeing out there? That would be my question, Matt. I mean, you look at 92% negative coverage over the last 3 months in American media of the work that this administration is doing. That's not to say there can't be improvements made in the messaging around tariffs and issues related to the markets. No question about that. I think that American people have a lot to understand as far as President Trump's long goal there. But again, it is headed in the right direction as far as a lot of the people feel in terms of his base.
I have to say, from my experience in America, the messaging depends very much on which cable network you're watching. If you're watching Fox News, it's an entirely different universe. If you're watching MSNBC or CNN, it's something else. Peter, I mean, on the positive messaging, he has brought illegal immigration down drastically. The traffic of fentanyl across the southern border has virtually stopped. 140,000 deportations, which is roughly the same number that Obama had, I think, after a certain term. But he's made a song and dance about it. So these are successes.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's taking credit for them, and the American public supports him in immigration. They don't like a lot of what they're seeing in deportations, especially these stories about kids, people being illegally taken out of the U.S. But on immigration, on balance, people largely support him.
And isn't that the point? They want immigration, illegal immigration, to come down. They just don't like some of the processes. So when you arrest people, like the guy who was released today, even though he had a green card, that's just not the American way, is it, Jen?
Listen, this administration wants Americans to feel safe again. They didn't feel that under the last administration that said there's no issue at our southern border, that says there's nothing we can do to stop this, that even said they inherited a crisis from President Trump. We saw that this last administration never went to the border, never really truly sat down with Border Patrol to understand the issues that were being faced. We've seen numbers 95% down year over year, and we're getting out the people that came here illegally, that have committed crime after crime, and really devastated a lot of our communities.
Peter, I can see you shaking your head.
Yes, criminals should not be in the U.S. Got it. Everybody agrees on that. There was also bipartisan legislation that Democrats and Republicans came together to work on last year, in Biden's last year in office. Trump encouraged his supporters to kill it. So there was bipartisan support. I think the concern, though, to your point, is about process and legal immigrants. You've got a lot of guys with green cards, people working hard, doctors being turned away at the border. So the other part of it is that statistically, immigrants commit less crime than native-born Americans. So we also need to sort the math. It isn't quite as black and white as that.
And there's a lot of math in terms of how the reporting is happening in a lot of these districts around the country, that it's not being reported accurately, some of the crimes that have been committed. And again, we saw an administration that didn't care about the families that were destroyed by the loss of their loved ones at the hands of these illegal migrants. That now
I'm sure they would deny that.
This administration has embraced the angel moms.
But this is getting back to numbers. I mean, this economy was growing at 2.8% in the last quarter. It's now contracted by 0.3%. That's not because of some earthquake or an oil shock, or another foreign war. That's because of Donald Trump. This is self-inflicted harm.
Is it self-inflicted harm, though, the last 4 years? How do you undo in 100 days?
But it was going gangbusters until the end of the Biden administration.
Look at the price of gas right now. It's down from largely where it was over a year ago, the $5 high per gallon that we saw under President Biden. That's a record high.
I raise you a gallon of gas for a carton of eggs, right? So
that the price of eggs is coming
down. I know. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Secretary Rollins is doing a phenomenal job in looking out
briefly,
for our farmers.
Peter. I mean, Jen is denying that it's self-inflicted harm. There was a master plan here, three-dimensional chess. Your response?
Clearly, President Trump's actions are impacting the markets and the American confidence in the markets. Politicians respond to how they think voters will respond to what they think is happening. Right now, by and large, voters think bad things are happening. And if there's a long-term plan, we'd love to see it. The president has also said he acts on his gut, and I just hesitate to guess what's in any other man's intestines.
Okay, the cabinet meeting today. I mean, I find it absolutely fascinating that in the 250th anniversary of you guys turning your backs on Mad King George, our king, you've got a president who behaves as if he wants court-like fealty from his cabinet members and wants to wear a crown. I mean, this is just nonsense, isn't it?
I think that's a mainstream legacy media narrative. That's not false. Listen,
mainstream legacy media, give me a break. Come on,
I appreciate
look at those.
That. Listen, I was in that briefing room years ago during the first Trump administration. I know the president very well. I know a number of his cabinet members very well. We've never seen a more transparent administration in history. Yeah, you have a president that's speaking directly
do you think they actually believe the stuff that they say?
Listen, look at what we saw in the last administration, where President Biden had a note card all of the time, was carefully taking asking pre-selected questions, never went one-on-one with any media that was not completely friendly to him.
Peter, Obama missed a trick, didn't he? I mean, people should have put their hand up and said, we love this president, you're the best guy ever.
No. That's not how democracy works. And Democrats have never been that party. A famous American humorist once said, I don't belong to an organized political party, I'm a Democrat. Trump has talked about a third term with a straight face. He's redone the Oval in gilt and gold. Not my guy, but I think what we need to talk about is increasing support and trust in processes and support for democratic institutions, because without public confidence in institutions, this experiment falls apart. And I think everybody should be working to increase that confidence.
Well, listen, I would also say you have a cabinet with people like Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., from different backgrounds, even Elon Musk. Many of them have differences in opinion. President Trump welcomes that. He's embraced that more than we've seen in the last
Elon Musk called Peter Navarro, the trade, tariffs are a moron.
Listen,
and here he was kind of, blowing smoke up, where today. I mean, come on.
It's okay to have spirited debate. I think that's important in this country. We've gotten away from that to a place where we can't have those conversations.
Jen Pellegrino, Peter Loge, thank you very much indeed.